to the TRICHOMES Weekly Roll Up, where we cover the latest in federal legalization topics and cannabis news headlines. This week in cannabis, the Biden administration officially proposed changes to the way Schedule I drugs are researched, and the Drug Enforcement Administration and the National Institute on Drug Policy testified in support of these changes. Cannabis banking reform was removed from the latest iteration of the National Defense Authorization Act. However, chief sponsor Representative Ed Perlmutter intends to file an amendment. New poll results from South Dakota related to cannabis reflect poorly on Governor Kristi Noem. Trichomes.com reached out to the governor's mansion for a response. Missouri could soon vote on cannabis legalization, with Republican Representative Shah-med Dogan pre-filing a constitutional amendment. And a group of lawmakers sent a follow-up letter to President Biden, urging him to grant pardons for those with nonviolent cannabis charges having to spend the holidays suffering behind bars or accruing criminal fees. And now, here are your hosts, John Bond and Jared Duggins.
All right. And I believe we're live.
In the studio, man.
We're in the studio.
We're here in person.
In the flesh.
Enjoying conversations amongst friends.
It's fantastic.
Absolutely. Happy Friday, everybody.
Yeah, happy Friday. For you out there that went to Hall of Flowers, we have just experienced that ourselves and met up there for the first time in the flesh. And John's been so kind as to hit us on the way back to Orange County Airport. So, you know, when it comes down
to Emerald Cup, man.
On the way to Emerald Cup.
Absolutely, and it's wild to think that that's the first interaction that we've had, like face to face, the amount of time that we know each other and the way that we know each other. Man.
Right.
It's crazy. It really makes you appreciate that in-person connection with folks.
Oh, absolutely.
And like in Hall of Flowers in general, dude. There's really nothing. There's a lot of really great cannabis shows out there, but I would say in terms of like bringing the cannabis culture forward in a way that's productive and meaningful, people are getting shit done there.
Yeah.
There's just about nothing better, man. And so it's great to see all friends, like eventually business colleagues that become friends, and then it's an awesome time, man.
Oh, yeah.
Long couple of days though.
Absolutely.
Some of the best cannabis products in the world, man.
Absolutely. Oh, it was great. It was a great time. Yeah, the pandemic and all that kind of stuff really changed the face of how people do business. And so a lot of face-to-face was taken out of it for a year and a half almost,
Dude, I've gotten such an appreciation for the level of sophistication that comes with putting those events together, and then now even in the new day and age and all the considerations that are taken, because everything is completely taken into consideration when it comes to like COVID precautions and everything like that.
Oh, absolutely.
It's another level of organization and output, and I just think it's such a cool thing. Like it was a scary time to think those times were going away forever. You know? And so to be back in it now and doing the thing that brought us all here in the first place, which is this communal cannabis industry, I think there's really nothing better.
Absolutely. I just realized, when it comes down to us rounding out the corners and technical difficulties and being raw and real, we should have gone the other way. We're showing everybody our AirPods, and we should have probably said, hey, whatever, we're good.
Just a couple of power showing AirPods.
There you go. Hey, beautiful thing. So yeah, now that you're here, there's a couple things that we're probably going to start talking about when it comes down to the format of this, and really trying to keep it a little bit different than everyone else does it, right? And make sure that our guests are here providing different perspectives and doing that kind of thing. And really, for those of you who've been watching from the beginning and participating from the beginning, make sure that in the comments you're dropping questions of what you want to hear about on that. We'll try to have a section in the back of when we do these lives where we answer some of those. It's tough for us to really participate with the comments on an ongoing level, just because, especially right now, we've changed the format as to where we don't have the computers in front of us and that kind of thing. So really, we have a moderator in there, and we'll be taking note of the questions, and we'll make sure to get to them on the time after basis. So thanks again for your participation, and really look forward to all the comments and how things are going out there. But wow, another big week in cannabis.
Is there ever going to not be an action-packed week when it comes to the roller coaster of legislation and legalization and the train that it's on right now?
It's going to be that way for a minute.
Yeah,
it's going to be that way for a minute.
Just like it's the point where it's just it's like, oh, what happened this week? And obviously a lot of things, and so it's going to be really interesting. It's a lot of think a lot of people trying to accomplish the same things, and I think that people just need to hear each other. There's a lot of talking, not a lot of listening happening.
Right.
What I've been able to see, and, that's an entirely apolitical, of course, but just see that there's a lot of talking, not a lot of listening.
Yeah.
which is the bane of all miscommunication in general.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, well, I mean, what is happening is people are going about the things the way they go about them in general. And when it comes down to Schedule 1 research changes and challenges and that kind of stuff, the DEA is taking the lead, and they're trying to figure out, public safety first and doing that kind of thing. And they're really demanding it. But I think that might actually help clear the way in some of these other research, verticals.
I'm hoping so. Something's got to be the battering ram to get the foot in the door. And realistically, in so many different ways, I really hope it's the criminal justice reform piece of that. But one of these has to hit. I know we talked about it with Steve last week, but
right.
One of them at some point is going to kick the door down to where we open up the opportunity to have these initial conversations that need to be had.
Right.
Which is super important.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about the reform and criminal reform before banking reform, and realistically, that's also one of the things we're talking about here is Schumer basically is holding true to his promise and blocking things, and the NDAA was left out of the filibuster bill or the Omni bill there.
And obviously we're pretty close to that one, being that we are a cannabis technology company. And
right.
My time prior to being in cannabis technology, we had our grow in Vegas. The level of danger and the things like, hey, I mean, if you're not even looking at it from like a socioeconomic standpoint of like how many $100,000 backpacks that I had to take, around town on a Friday to pay bills because our power was going to get shut off because somebody wasn't handling the mail the right way at the facility, and like
Absolutely.
Obviously the plants are 24-hour creatures. To if you don't side with the danger of someone walking around with that level of cash and the fact that most retailers have more cash on site than a bank, and probably a tenth of what the security measures would be at a bank or financial institution, side with the idea that it is slowing down the ability to do commerce in the space, and thus making it so difficult for operators to succeed.
Absolutely.
And it's like when you're waiting on the cash and like the inventory in, inventory out, and the ability to process an extra 30, 40, 50 transactions a day
right.
as a retailer, that is literally the difference between success or failure in terms of being able to pay your employees, being able to get them, the right types of insurance. I mean, there's just so many different things that are being stifled by this, and so it's really a head scratcher, man.
Yeah, well, cash flow is really an antiquated term, but it's also the term that businesses live and die by, right?
Totally.
The flow of that cash, and like you said, really, it needs to be digitized. It needs to be not paper anymore. It needs to be on paper.
And
right?
and to be honest, and this is not a shameless plug, but one of our biggest focuses as like the problem solvers with Dutchie is obviously the payment side. And we're launching an ACH solution that's unbelievable. It's going to address that, right? And it's going to have all the rails for Visa, MasterCard when you do eventually get there. We're able to do that, but there's so many different things that this supports in terms of growth and the ability to be successful in this industry, right? You can't expect, folks that may have been legacy operators to do things the right way if we're not giving them the tools to be successful.
Absolutely.
It's like you're put in a very difficult position there. Am I going to feed and support my family and put my business at risk by signing up with a hacky solution that's going to run my money around the world 3 times and process credit cards for me, only to know that when I grow to a certain point, that's not scalable, and the business is held accountable for that. You personally are held accountable for that.
Right.
But the government being the way that it's been with this, you really don't give people a choice. People have risked everything and put everything they have into, let alone the risk with small business, right? Now think about like small business and cannabis business, which is really the chips are stacked against you in terms of being successful.
Yeah.
Of like even turning a buck, right? Some people might even consider success of cannabis retailers not shutting down. And that's incredible. The fact that the bar is set that low, that somebody can risk everything and put everything they have into that,
yeah.
Or thinking that we're staying open for 3 years is some kind of mark of like success. I mean,
right.
Yes, don't get me wrong. The level of business failure today is higher than ever, right? Especially with the pandemic. But like, we can't make it too difficult for people to succeed if we expect things to be done the right way.
And that's exactly what it feels like they're doing from all angles, right? These taxes in California, it's getting worse every year. They just increased them, and things. I mean, just left and right. It's things are being taken from the industry, and we're still expected to thrive. And really, there's a different narrative and different story being told to the public than what's actually happening right now. But there's a lot of consolidation going on because of it. And some people have access to it. And when it comes down to our shows and what we do at Trichomes and the features we do, it's about highlighting companies like that too. Not a shameless plug. It's letting people know there's a product out there for this, right?
Sure.
And we've interviewed many other payment people out there and that kind of thing. You just happen to be one of the first careers in cannabis.
It's just whether it's Dutchy or any of the other great cannabis technology companies that are out there in the space, right? They all exist with the idea that we need to help them make it easier for retailers to do business.
Absolutely.
Right? To focus on the things that you need to focus on as a business, right? Because buying and selling of quality cannabis products and attaining those customers from like a marketing lens already have enough challenges built into them, let alone the real estate challenges, the personnel staffing challenges, right? So it's like in that lens, like payments falls right under that. Technology in general, whether it's Dutchy or anybody else, right? Like you've got to be able to put the businesses that power this industry that we all love, that have such an opportunity to do so many incredible things, in a position to be successful.
Absolutely.
You can't do that. You can't expect things to go the way that we would like them to if we don't, give people the tools. It really all comes down to it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and then hey, I know we want to skip around here a second, but hey, Missouri's on the map. Missouri's in the news.
And I know we're playing the Raiders this weekend. I don't know if anybody can see the bottom of my shirt. No offense to any Raider fans out there, but there are a few things more sacred than the Chiefs-Raiders rivalry.
Yes.
And especially if you're a native Kansas Citian. But I'm really excited to see
Go Chargers.
Yeah, go Chargers. Everyone can agree. We don't say it on air, right? But I'm really excited. I had an opportunity to be very close to folks that were a part of getting the Missouri regulation off the ground.
Yeah.
My old partner, actually, from the cannabis cultivation days, has an unbelievably successful operation out there, illicit and from the earth. They have like 5 dispensaries, state-of-the-art massive cultivation, are crushing their concentrate game. These limited license markets, right? They're all learning from the other markets that have came before, right? When I wanted to get into cannabis and I was living in Kansas City, it was 2015. There really wasn't like an opportunity to do that anywhere close geographically to where I was at, let alone if I were to move to California, Colorado, you're chasing the caboose of the train, right? Whereas if you're there from the medical days and you help build that program from the ground up, you're really helping lay the tracks. And, Missouri, because they were able to get in with the learnings of so many other states that have come before them, right? They're in a position now to put themselves in the adult use. It's becoming formulaic. It's like medical sets the business case and the taxation structure for what's going to be successful.
Yeah.
And then adult use puts the pedal to the metal in terms of generating taxes for the state.
Absolutely.
And so I think that Midwest vibe is obviously a very serious thing. If you're from Kansas, Nebraska, Iowa, Missouri, Arkansas, Oklahoma, right? There's all of these places that they're called flyover states for a reason, right? And I've been personally spent a ton of time in the Missouri cannabis market, and I'm really excited to see like the cool things that are coming out of there, and it's got its own feel and vibe, just like everywhere else in the United States, right? Like I'm a barbecue snob, of course, being a Kansas City, but I appreciate barbecue in other places. Kansas City still the best, obviously. But that's all up for debate. And it's like every bit of it.
Oh no, it's great. No, I was out there and part of the licensing process. Oh God, it's one of the oldest ones that's down there in Missouri. It's got the bowl out front.
Oh, Jack Stack.
Yep. That was the one place I got to experience while I was out there. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, I first got out of college, just go to one of the plaza. It's like the plaza, like shopping district area.
No, downtown.
Okay. Totally.
So, and I can't rember if I was on the Kansas City side or no, we were in.
Yeah, it was definitely on the Kansas City. It's all on the Missouri side.
Yeah.
That place is an institution. There's also Oklahoma Joe's.
Talking
about Missouri cannabis legislation, now you got me left. Clearly, we haven't eaten lunch.
Hey, you know what?
It's a really exciting thing, though, and I have a pretty high level of confidence that bill's going to pass as well. And specifically because you think about like seeing these other states around you that are having these amazingly successful, at least from like a top line successful cannabis program. You know what I mean? And like when I think about like what's like next for that, it's like now you can layer in certain things like getting some of the regulatory things straightened out in like a payments lens, right? Like Missouri's got a unique regulation that you have to take payment before product leaves the facility, which is interesting.
Absolutely.
And so, like, when you think about, same to our point with the Safe Banking Act, making it easier for retailers to do business, I think there's no limit to how high that will go.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Nice. Yeah. No, it was great over there. Saw it. You know, the weather on the way in and out, as I was flying in and out, I was participating with some tornadoes and that kind of thing.
There's a reason why, like, the main pastime of the Midwest is like eating and bellying up to a bar. It's because outside it's not great for about 8 months of the year.
I pull into town and all of a sudden there's those tornado warnings going on. Yeah, what's that? You know, I'm over here used to earthquakes and
living on the coast now for a couple of years, tornadoes are crazy, right? Yeah. Hurricanes are crazier in terms of, like, you know, where there's like tsunamis up in Oregon on the coast, but tornadoes are wild because it'll pick up a telephone pole and just throw it through a house a mile and a half away. Every house around it is completely untouched, right? And it's like, I think that's where it's like, and they just are so frequent for such a long period of time throughout the year. It's like, is it Wednesday? Are they testing the tornado sirens? What's the sky look like? Okay. Right. But you know what? I love the Midwest more than anything, and I'm really excited that I think that will become, like, you know, Chicago's obviously Chicago with some of the biggest cannabis companies in the world there, right? And a lot of them are customers in the GTIs and the Cresco's, Toronto's of the world.
Nice.
You know, but I think don't sleep on Missouri. You know, I've seen some solid dispensary. Like, there's great ones. My friend that I mentioned, they're opening one down by the Sprint Center. It's gonna be the busiest dispensary in Kansas City when adult use passes. It's unbelievable.
That would be nice.
Absolutely.
That would be nice. Yeah, no, I was down there right across the street from the baseball stadium, the famed baseball stadium right there, and watching when the Blues were taking the.
That's St. Louis. That's the other side of the state.
Yeah, oh, sorry, but that one. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm from California, obviously.
One of the best things ever come from St. Louis. Just joking. It's a Kansas City, St. Louis joke. No, my whole family lives in Missouri. It's a great place in the cannabis market there, especially this is from a totally, like, data-driven lens.
Yeah,
it's doing very well.
Nice, right on. Well, you know, and I apologize if we have any. This is the first time we're doing in studio with this camera setup and that kind of stuff. We've got some in studio people, a little background noise, that kind of thing going on. But yeah, please pardon that. You know, making sure that we can hear. Everything sounds technically good to us. I was hearing a little bit of background noise, so hopefully that doesn't show through too much on the audio there.
I assume somebody other threw something at me or something.
Oh yeah, no, I was crumpling up and throwing. I noticed on the last recording when I was moving this onto my computer, somehow the computer was still picking up the microphone. So
great microphone. Technology's wild, man.
I was trying not to do that so much. But yeah, you know, so realistically, who? Oh, you know what? I know this one was one of the ones you wanted to talk about as well, as far as Governor Kristi Noem.
Yeah.
And a new poll has shown that Governor Noem has a 51.2% disapproval rating amongst her constituents, and she's also up for re-election next year. You know, she's the person that stated, the fact is, I've never met someone who's gotten smarter from smoking pot.
What a generalized, out of touch thing to say. And so let alone the creatives, the artists, the musicians, and not even that, right? Like, that used to be like, oh, cannabis is a creative thing. But I know a lot of very hyper productive people, one of which including my fiance, that is the most operationally sound person in the world, whilst using cannabis, right? More organized than I could ever be, more efficient than I could ever be.
Yeah.
Right. And furthermore, like, that's just the reefer madness thing is just almost a joke. It's laughable to me as it's continued to, like, make its way to, like, the public eye, and that someone can say that and think that, like, that's not. I just don't understand.
Right.
I don't get it.
It's, you know, shoot. I don't want to get into quoting silly quotes that make headlines from the people that are leading us from the States, but that's up there in the top 10 at least for this last little bit there. So
I don't know a single. Well, first of all, I can't even imagine what that community was like. I'm sorry, maybe the country club, Chablis sipping community that feels like people are getting stupid from cannabis.
Right.
I didn't really want to hang out in that circle anyways, if we're being completely honest.
Right.
So,
while their conversation goes from conventional to slurred,
I mean,
while
look,
they're drinking.
Just like so many things societally today that I think we're missing on. People should be free to believe in and support the things they want to support and be open to the opinions of others that might feel differently. As long as it's not like violently opposing or violently like endangering somebody or like hateful things, obviously not. Right. But like, you know, we're in a position now where like there's a lot of dollar signs associated with dividing, you know, society on things. And if people can't see that that's very clearly what's been happening and the dollar signs continue to tally, then, you know, unplug for a second and take a look around, take a quick 37,000 foot zoom out. But to sit there and think of like, to say it's not good for our kids, when I think of people like Colton Turner, who has Crohn's disease, is one of the most outspoken folks in terms of like cannabis as a medicine, and has data and scientific research that proves all of this.
Absolutely.
I would love for her to read that report and see if she says that it's not good for our kids and it's not going to improve our communities.
Right.
Read the article, and then like nobody should ever have that strong of an opinion on something until they've considered something from the other point of view.
Right.
And that's when we talk about a lot of talking, not a lot of listening.
Yeah. Well, and you know, for recreational consumption, are we talking about, you know, kindergartners smoking weed? No.
No.
Are we talking about, you know, pushing this on to junior high school kids like the vape industry did, you know, with the Nick? No, we're literally talking about people who need this for medical reasons, and their life and quality of life is bettered because of it, without all the side effects that come along with the normal, you know, pharmaceutical. And I've been able to watch, and again, anecdotally, but in real life, right? Somebody who was born without a broken neck, receive a broken neck, become a quadriplegic, be on a myriad of 15 to 17 different pills, and systematically get rid of all of that through the use of cannabis, and basically just be on the few things that are needed for the position of being quadriplegic, of which is sat down all the time, as we do with, you know.
And my good friend Josh Hoft, right? He was the founder of 3Alite, which sold the Medicine Man, which became Schwaz, and now he's got Artsy, which is a killer brand that he's doing. And like, he was a child epileptic cannabis patient, and it is literally like cannabidiol and cannabinoids are the only thing that's ever worked in terms of like curbing his seizures and his epileptic episodes. And like, that's a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, and you think about like, at the end of the day, like there's so many different things that this plant could unlock in terms of like a health and wellness lens from our society that we're just not exploring, which, you know, actually leads into the additional point there, which is the researchers for Schedule 1 having to be registered with the DEA.
Right.
Which, you know, how do you feel about that? I'm curious.
You know, I imagine they're doing it because of the fact that it's still not federally legal within that. But I mean, the state structures allow for people to possess and do that kind of thing. So I don't know. The DEA is definitely what was prohibiting people to come run and participate in the research studies up front. I know that they have been looking for farmers for quite some time, but it's like, hey, you any good at what you do?
Right.
You grow weed, right? It's illegal, but come tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, I'll be right there. Be right there.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, really, how I feel about it is probably how everybody else who's come from the legacy market does. Is it's real tough to wrap your head around a federal agency running this. So that's the tough part. I think one of the first 6 federally recognized people out of I should have had this off the top of my head, but is Arizona, I think, was approved, and it was a Canadian group. And not that I have anything against Canada, they're friendly neighbors, love the beer, and Vancouver, BC is one of my favorite places to visit ever.
Sure.
Flat out.
Never been there,
but
it's on the list.
Why is a Canadian company running American research studies on cannabis when,
you know, I mean, I could give you a lot of reasons why I think that might be happening, but a lot of which would expose me as a lack of. So I'm not gonna. Well, but let's put it this way: like it's
money.
It's money and it's control of the situation. It's predicting the roll of the dice. Why would we allow defense contractors to do things with companies like with the government, right? But we won't allow the same thing for cannabis.
Right.
It needs to be a federal. Like, do we need the FDA or someone to be to be overseeing, and then DEA to oversee these types of testing, or do we need like actual folks in the scientific community that are tried and true. I mean, again, same thing with defense contracting, right? I mean, you've got these companies that have these massive defense contracts for the government that are building things that are far more destructive than cannabis, far more, especially in the wrong hands. We can talk about cannabis in the hands of a child or weapons in the hands of someone that shouldn't have them, right?
Right.
Shocker.
Yeah,
so it's all a ruse, man. I so much of this, and this is really like an overarching thing. I really hope that, like, with how good it's and how easy it's become to like report on the financial stability and the health of things, right?
Right.
Someone somewhere, some actuary, somebody in some room has to be looking at this and saying, we are spending more money on preventing this from happening and trying to create a difficult way of it to happen, a difficult way for it to happen,
right,
than we could to like allow like support and help it flourish.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, who's not making that? Who's not looking at that? And like even like anecdotally and saying like, is this worth a deeper discussion? Right? Are we really? Can someone point to me a single report that says that like, you know, someone's OD'd on cannabis at some point in their life, or that all of these things that it's you don't know anybody that's gotten smarter from smoking cannabis or smoking pot, right?
I think clinically they came out and they were researching you know, the stuff provided from Ole Miss back in the day, but they said something about needing to consume 1,500 pounds of cannabis, and I add, or have a drop on your head, to perish from this plant. You know, it's like, stop it.
If you get too if you eat too many edibles and you fall asleep on a park bench when it's 25 degrees below zero, that could be a cannabis-induced death. Same thing happens with folks that drink too much and pass out.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, where are we putting our time and energy, and how are we putting it forward? Is it mindful? Is it something that's benefiting the greater good?
Right.
Or is this really just to maintain the way of life that we're comfortable with? Or I shouldn't even say we. I should say a very small population of folks
right,
are comfortable with, that unfortunately have the reins of the generational wealth in society.
Well, you know, and the pendulum swings back and forth. I think the younger generations are demanding more transparency. The age of technology is allowing for it, and it's time for us to swing back to center a little bit.
It's the time of questions, right? It's great. It's unbelievable, and things like, you know, I only had the internet for half my life, right? You know, I remember being in like middle school, like 12, 13, 14, with dial-up, instant messenger, sneaking into my parents' room to get on the computer, like to be on late at night, right? So like, instant information. Like I would wonder how many students or kids go to a library to like read books anymore. Whereas I know I spent a ton of time in the library because I had to. The internet was still on the ramp there, right?
Yeah.
But at this point, kids have an opportunity to be as smart as they want to be. Now, the more important life skill is filtering information. What's real, what's not. How do you figure out what's fake and what's real, etc. That's like the more important life skill, right? Still haven't used algebra. But I would love a class in spotting fake news, because that would have saved me a lot of heartache in times where I thought there was things that I could impact that I really couldn't. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And so when you think about that, it's like that just idea in itself, it's great that generation is going to continue to ask questions. I promise you the generation is not. The generations of those that are clinging to that, those questions are not going to stop coming, and they're going to become more prevalent and in greater numbers, right? It's just a matter of like, is it going to happen before we continue to expend all this energy, you know?
Right.
Because there's so many other things societally that are such a bigger deal or less a big deal.
Absolutely.
You know,
just because isn't an answer anymore.
Nope.
And statements like that aren't allowable anymore.
No.
And you know, it's getting, well, it's been beyond ridiculous for quite some time. But you know, that's really where we're at. And you know, I think the pendulum for us, for cannabis in general, is kind of swinging that way. You know, is legalization happening this year? In my opinion, of which we don't throw out too much on trichomes and that kind of stuff when it comes down to news or anything like that. In my opinion, I don't think we're going to see outright legalization happen on a federal level during this administration. And it's not because of this administration. It's because of everything that has to happen in between now and federal legalization.
You know, that's fine, but let's get people out of prison.
Let's get people out of prison. Let's provide some safety for the people who are doing it right, taking the time to do it right. Because again, carrying around duffel bags full of cash, it's so 1990s.
It's like, it's the steps to getting to where we're going, and taking incremental wins as an industry, I think, is something that we should dare I say it, right? I'm never going to say like we should take what's given to us, right? We're always taking more, and obviously it's that scratch and claw mentality,
Absolutely.
right? And it has been. And anybody that works in the cannabis industry or has for any amount of time, especially for a long period of time, is very familiar with the scratch and claw that it takes to be successful and even survive.
Absolutely.
Right? And one thing, we were talking about cauliflowers, that I noticed that was different from events that I've been to, and I actually would say this with other events too, in terms of this time in life, right?
Mm-hmm.
The weed game has been has historically always been my weed's better than their weed. Their weed sucks. My weed's great. It's just like it's the crux of what this is that we do, right? And it's also been kind of part of the fun of it too. And obviously cannabis is bougie, and there's like a lot of really great bands doing great things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of really strong, a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
I saw a lot more like community, I would say, like people not as much as heavy on that. Well, their product sucks, our product is better, for whatever reason, because again, the writing is on the wall that, things are coming and change is coming to this industry that we love. And I think everyone's kind of come to the conclusion that we're all in this foxhole together.
Oh yeah.
And so it's really us against the rest of everyone that will come in and try and change this beautiful thing that we've got here, that we try to keep nice as long as we can. Right. But people start moving in eventually. Neighborhood's going to change.
Absolutely.
I really enjoyed seeing that, man. It's refreshing, and like the humanism behind all of it is like, it's a really refreshing thing, and especially when you think you weren't going to be able to come back to it, And so, long story short, is like all of that playing into that, it makes it irrefutable. That eventually there's going to be some change. Again, it's just at what expense.
Right.
How much do we really need to bleed anymore to be able to prove that point?
Right. That's being experienced right now by a lot of the smaller companies, and it's a tough thing, and that's that actually brings us to a good point as to what we had been talking about before after the last episode, and how things will be, what we're going to incorporate some of the story along the way and bring some of those brand owners in, bring some people from outside the industry in to talk about it, and
it's pretty easy. In cannabis is a tight community. We just bring our friends on the podcast and talk.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Talk about things because, and again, it's like the beautiful thing too is that everyone's take is so unique and interesting, and it's a little bit different because everyone's experience, even though it's all going to the same place, taking a lot of the same channels, everyone's ride is different.
Absolutely.
And it's a pretty cool thing.
Definitely. Perspective is everything for this, and really, as everybody out there watching, whether you're a cannabis consumer, whether you're looking to get into the industry, whether you're looking for federal updates, we're trying to have that. But hopefully, you'll hear something that provides perspective on the way you're looking at cannabis and how you want to get into it and what it means to you. So, with that, I don't know. It was a great week. It was great seeing you. Hall of Flowers is awesome.
We're gonna have to make it more often. I'm gonna get back down here. I mean, I love Central Oregon more than anything, but I'm in California a lot, so I just such a better vibe hanging in person and doing the podcast.
Absolutely.
Man. So maybe we'll get the TRICHOMES jet going back and forth.
That would be fantastic. As soon as I think it's a prop plane right at the moment, but
prop plane gets legs on it.
Well, I want to get up to Bend as well.
Dude, we would love that. Our office is great. We should do a podcast in there one day.
Yeah, for sure.
That'd be cool.
That'd be great. I was up there with when we were doing Orchid and doing the outlay. I was up in Bend quite a bit. It was fun.
Winter or summer, Bend is a great place to be.
Yeah.
Like if you're an outdoor person, there's the hiking, everything like to do with the mountains in the summertime. So much sunshine, and then the wintertime, Mount Bachelor is the absolute best.
Nice.
So hopefully got some snow on Batchy when I get back up there, swinging through Emerald Cup, like I mentioned, meeting my fiance up there, doing a unbelievable little wine weed weekend.
Congrats again. Congrats again. Nice.
And be able to relax, but it's this last week, man, what a time to be alive, right?
Yeah.
I got to go to like an infused brunch. It was like one of the coolest things I've ever been a part of. And understanding the science behind like nano-emulsification, like all these things. I got to just what a time to be alive. Right.
Well, I think with that, what we're probably going to do is throw a little shout out to our homies over at Punch Edibles, Punch Concentrates, who gave us a Punch Rocket.
Just another example of the outstanding cannabis products that are hitting the market right now, man.
Yeah. So You know?
Do the honors.
Oh, you after you, sir.
Okay.
It's the weekly roll up, and it's being rolled up.
We'll smoke a joint on the way out here, man.
Sounds good.
We appreciate everybody.
For you guys out there in YouTube land, thanks for that. We'll be gearing up to go live on multiple other platforms here in January. So thanks for bearing with the inaugural episodes of Weekly Roll Up, TRICHOMES Weekly Roll Up, and we'll be coming to you live next Friday. And look
Quick
forward
hot
to it.
take on the review. The product's outstanding.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all. Have a good weekend.